I will introduce myself, although you all know me. I'm Jung Gustafson, professor of psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin Medical School, giving my second YouTube lecture in a series of 36 weekly lectures on Friday, posted by mid-afternoon every Friday for the next 9 months. This second lecture is called Reading Dreams According to Freud, Jung, and Gustafson. Allow me to begin by stating what almost no one seems to know about dreams, according to current neuroscience. Dreams rerun in the hippocampus, in its field, routes at night that the animal ran in the day preceding. Furthermore, these routes resonate with past routes, and they also resonate with paths to be run in the day to come. They have the selective advantage for the animal of weighting paths in terms of their opportunities and in terms of their dangers. In the human being, the right hippocampus maps this positioning of the animal in its physical field, while the left hippocampus maps the positioning of the human animal in terms of its narrative or story. Thus, the human being gets the extraordinary chance, in words, to see how he or she is moving in the world. Now let us see what Freud, Jung, and Gustafson demonstrate of our dreams acting upon us. I will be very brief about Freud and Jung and chiefly devote myself to a single dream example dreamed by Gustafson himself. Freud summarizes himself better than anyone else in a little essay called On Dreams, utilizing a dream of his own about a table d'hôte, as they say in French, a common table in a hotel. Freud demonstrates in his dream proof that the following details of the dream that seem strange bedfellows, that they go together, but that they converge upon a single concern that Freud had himself about giving a lot and not getting much back. In other words, about his exchanges, which, as Levi-Strauss pointed out a long time ago, all dreams are about that for the last 2 million years in the human animal. So the dream is spinach, Frau E.L., whom Freud hardly knew, turning her whole attention upon him and laying her hand on his knee in an intimate manner, Freud lifting her hand off his knee. Frau E.L. saying, "But you've always had beautiful eyes." Freud having an indistinct picture of 2 eyes, as in a drawing of a pair of spectacles. I leave the demonstration to your reading. I have only a moment to summarize Freud's contribution to our reading of dreams. Consciously, dreams seem to be nonsensical aggregations. Unconsciously, they converge. Jung also summarizes himself better than anyone else in his longer essay, The Practical Use of Dreams, especially in the major example in there of a man from a prominent position in the world. This dream is a long one of this prominent person rushing to get a train, hurrying and rattling himself in every possible way, arriving on the platform with the train already pulling out and the driver applying the steam full ahead, which then throws the rear of the train is still on the curved part of the track. Crash. Jung's reading departs from Freud's. As Jung demonstrates in this example, the dream specimen is not nonsensical on the surface. Is not nonsensical on the surface. It reads out like the hippocampus reads out as a set of opportunities and dangers, which the patient heeds or ignores at his own peril. Gustafson's many contributions to the reading of dreams can be summarized as follows, and I'll shift to the first person about this person. I have followed Poincaré in his method of composing highly original proofs in nonlinear geometry that created that branch of mathematics and its profound and current applications to many, many sciences currently. Poincaré discovered not only nonlinear geometry, but also a method of discovery that's original. He found that he could line up his unconscious to make a selection out of millions of possible proofs of the right one. Poincaré called that his sieve. By working consciously as hard as he could to compose a proof consciously before he went to bed and during the day, he brought his unconscious sieve into play to make the selection out of millions of possibilities that he would write out in the morning. What I have succeeded in doing myself is to transpose Poincaré's method from mathematics to everyday life. I line up my unconscious to make its selection by writing in my journal before bedtime where I seem to be troubled. My sieve will make its selection of where I am caught and of the wherewithal I will need to deliver myself. In other words, I will get the lines of sight for both my captivity and for my deliverance in a single image. Certainly it is like Freud's giving us confidence that the details will converge. Certainly it's like Jung's notion that all the forces will be seen at once and one can see what the opportunities and dangers are. What is even more thrilling about my night proofs is their precision in a single image of the whole situation. Now I will illustrate precisely what I mean to demonstrate to you. Here I complete my proof of what this great instrument can divulge. I was troubled this last Monday night by a painful feeling, countless beautiful discoveries in the clinic with patients in transition, moving freshly, going back to patients with lists, flat, dull, listless, going nowhere. I went to bed asking myself how to spare myself this return to relatively pointless and trivial activity. Being on call, I got woken up about midnight for about 4 cases, but one of them was thrilling again. The resident presented me a highly dangerous, schizoaffective, and suicidal patient who went from dire to friendly and at ease with the resident and no longer suicidal and ready to go home. Of course, he and I had to ask ourselves if we could trust this remarkable transition. So I said to the resident, we can trust this transition from dire to friendly only if we can comprehend it. I asked him how he understood it. Essentially what he said was that the man had been in a dire condition being alone and in a friendly condition when he had the company of being understood. Also, if there was a reversal, as often there had been with him, he always called. I was thrilled because our understanding of the patient's transition from dire to friendly and our readiness for its reversal from friendly back to dire gave me confidence that we were right there with the patient's experience and not a million miles away in our abstractions, as I discussed in the last lecture. I woke up at 6 a.m. with the following dream image of extraordinary precision, as I will demonstrate to you, and there you have it. So you might want to look at that while I go over the action of the dream. I was quite astonished by this image, over which was intoned these words: they are coming sooner or later. I knew at once they must not see me, and I ducked out of sight, first to the left, you see the red lines, then to the right, then even below into the sea itself. How was I to make sense of this dire warning? How could I possibly be in such great danger? My first thought was of an article in a psychiatric newspaper I got in the mail the day before of a gunman entering the Western Psychiatric Clinic and killing one person and seriously wounding a number more. My next thought was that I was behaving in the dream exactly as ordered in the UW staff manual of getting out of the line of sight of the gunman, left, right, into the sea if necessary. So my unconscious was much more alarmed than I was consciously alarmed. My next thought was that my sieve was proving to me the opposite of where I left off at the resident at midnight. Not a transition from dire to friendly, but from friendly to dire. Evidently, a reversal is always possible. As the voice intoned, they are coming sooner or later. Now, all the strange nonlinear geometry of this proof fell into line. They are coming sooner or later recalled Christopher Logue's account of the fall of Troy that I read recently. The line is nearly a quote from his prose poem. The shape of the figure reminded me of an amoeba, a one-celled organism, quite like the group mind of one dimension that is extremely primitive as well. In other words, it was simply swallowing things up, like the comparable throne of the Greeks at Mycenae, which was said to be exactly such a place. The square in the center of the amoeba was a contradictory part of the astonishing image of the dream. Astonishing because it cannot be possible in a literal amoeba, but truly belongs in Troy, where the Greeks seemed to bestow a friendly horse upon the Trojans, when it was full of dire killers ready to burst open the city. Finally, two further condensations of the nonlinear geometry, and we will close for the day. It was strange, I even hid in the sea. Everything in a night painting of a dream is absolutely true, but it takes figuring out how and where it is true. I was reminded of being on the island of Paros in the late 70s with my wife. When the sun rose in the morning, it was so immediately hot that we had to run and go into the sea to save ourselves from it. In friendly paradise, we were suddenly in danger. Finally, to conclude and bring us right back into this room, I had to consider the remarkable square in the center that I drew in purple. I thought of the purple of sacred space, drawn, as Jung would say, by a boundary around it called the sulcus primigenius. So here we sit in just such a sacred square of learning, the friendliest of all spaces that could suddenly be invaded by what is dire and merciless, right through that door, right? As I said in my first lecture, the fiction of a partial truth is treacherous, but we have an unconscious instrument called a sieve that will read us the whole situation when we delude ourselves with conscious security operations that are not secure at all from the most dire forces. Thank you.